Welcome, guys. Welcome, guys. Ilechuku, how are you? Ilechuku, how are you? How was your night? Ilechuku, answer my greeting now. How was your night? Good morning, guys. Good morning. Oh, Victor Ikechukwu, sorry. Victor Ikechukwu. Oh, okay. Mark Kingsley, welcome. Mark Kingsley, welcome. Onwegunam Jude, welcome. Um, Ifeanyi Chukwu, welcome. Chukwuebu, I can see you. Welcome online. Mark Kingsley, I'm fine. Your next watch, how you dey? Welcome. Yeah, welcome. Cinema Hub, Chukwu Michael. Okay, Chukwu Michael, how are you? Nika, how are you? Emmanuel Chiemere, Wede Francis. Your next watch, I see you, you're active. Zadibe, Francis N, Marshall. Nika, I'm fine. Pew, how are you? Amasiobi, Amasiobi, congratulations. You shocked me in the exam. I've not finished marking, but so far, the ones I have marked, Amasiobi, you are my biggest surprise. You shocked me in the exam. You did so well, Amasiobi. Excellent. I was shocked by your score, Amasiobi. In fact, after marking the paper, I had to rush to check who the student is. But don't worry, by next week, you begin to see your scores. But Amasiobi, I was very, very impressed. I was very, very impressed the way you answered your questions. Congratulations. Okay. I'm waiting for your brothers to gradually come online. Kizito, welcome. Agu Emmanuel, welcome. Michael Ogo, welcome. Onziem, dead. Yes. Amasiobi smashed it. Amasiobi smashed it. Wait, let me be sure. Let me just be sure. Amasiobi, confirm. Is this your number? 3039. Amasiobi, confirm. Is 3039 your number? Sika, I can see you. Where is Amasiobi? I saw him online just now. Perez, this one you're answering Perez. Are you a player? 3039. Amasiobi, So far, I think in the examination you got all the score. You got 100% in the exam. I didn't remove even one mark. Sorry, I will give you full detail of the results. This is for phenomenology, please. For phenomenology, okay? I'm talking about phenomenology, Amasiobi. I've not finished marking, but I was impressed. There are other good performances. I've seen many 49, about 3, 4, 49 so far. But by next week, I will call up the whole scores for you. I will. The performance has been good. Of course, there are people that are also poor. But the good thing is that so far, I've not finished. So far, I've not recorded any failure. I have not recorded any failure in phenomenology, even though I have not finished marking. I have not finished marking. Victor Osimhen plays tonight. Yes, in the night we will go and watch. For now, let's do our class. Please tell your brothers, this is our official class. The number is still low. The number is still low. We are still 25 here. If the course rep is here, please. Nsianya, welcome. Nsianya, welcome. If the course rep is here, please, course rep, you have to go to the dean's office. The dean called me already to inform me. Go to the dean's office, get the remaining copies of this book, Philosophy of Language. Go and get it. I was told that there are 25 copies of this in the dean's office. Okay? Go and get them. I was also told that the price is 1,500. I was told that it's 1,500. So you can get it and help your classmates. Those of them that want, let them get it. Please, course rep, if you are here, can I see you? Can I see you, course rep? So please, I don't know if it is possible, if you can go now or if you can go immediately after the class. I don't want it to exceed today. Please, because they have been calling me. Just pick it. The price is 1,500. Those that are interested, there are limited copies. What we have is there are just 25 copies, according to the dean. So pick them and share to those that want them. It is 1,500 per copy. So prefect, please don't forget. Don't forget. Don't forget. I don't want the dean to call me again about this. Please, don't forget. Okay. Justin, yes, I can see you. No, your next watch is not for free. It's 500. Adi Gabriel, I can see you. Good morning. Nta, welcome. I can see you. Joseph Oporum. Duhu Victor, welcome. Aboy John Cross, welcome. Onukwo Gerard. You know the funny thing, some of you will just come and show your face and run away. You will just come and show your face and run away. No problem. No problem. On the day you will write your assessment, I will see what you will do. I will see what you will do. I've told you guys, this is your official class. Stay throughout the online session. Don't leave until the class is over. Some of you will just come, greet, good morning, doc. You will run away. It's all right. Masichuku Stephen. John Cross, una dey kampe. Una no dey kampe. I dey see wetin dey happen online here. I'm seeing it. So I'm the one that knows how many persons are in class and how many come and how many leave. Okay? How many comes and how many leaves. Please, the number is still 25. Justin Pugh, you have seen Shege. No worry, you will pass. Austin Udi present. Izuchukwu Vincent active. Okay, no problem. Okay, let's begin by looking at previous class. We discussed the reasons, we discussed the function of language, the ambiguities in the concept language, the difference between language and speech, the difference between language, speech, and then we looked at the definition of language and the definition of philosophy of language. These are the things we did the last time came. Adejo, I can see you. Good morning. So those are the things we did in the last time we came. We looked at the ambiguities associated with the concept of language, many meanings. Then we talked about Gilbert's differentiation of language and speech. Right? Then we proceeded to talk about the functions of language. And then we talked about the definition of language and the definition of philosophy of language. I am still looking at, we are still just 30. Who can recap? Who can recap? Who can recap? How did we differentiate language and speech? You can type online. How did we differentiate language and speech according to Gilbert Ryle? How? According to Gilbert Ryle, how did we distinguish language and speech? How did we cite? What did we say is the mentioned about 3 points to differentiate between language and speech? Odo Innocent, welcome. What did we say are the specific difference between the two? Who can try? Osago, welcome. Who can try? Who can tell us the difference? Speech, language. And what are the three ideas that the English word language may refer to? Okay. Michael, Lisa, okay. Mark Kingsley, okay, with Iska, Israel, America, Simon Peter, also, okay, and Obed, okay. That's good. Okay, that's good. Michael, Lisa, I can see you. Amadi Solomon, speech is pragmatic, language is systematic. That is correct. Can we have more? Speech is pragmatic, language is systematic. Can we have more difference? Yes? Okay, Francis, that's correct. Language can be learned by just being present, by observation, but speech has to be taught. Speech has to be taught. You can teach yourself language on your observation, but speech, you have to be taught how to make speech, because speech is systematic. Speech is systematic. So it's more difficult to learn the technique. According to Gilbert Ryle, language is a system of words, rules, and symbols shared by the community, while speech is the actual use of that system by an individual. Okay, that's good. Speech, Wisdom Dede, speech is peculiar and unique to an individual, while language is conventional and general. That is correct. That's correct. Language is the structured system of communication, while speech is the spoken realization or use of that system. Okay, correct. And okay, fine. Language is different from speech. How? We are talking about. Yes. Adejo. Yes, that's correct. That's correct, Adejo. Language is conventional. Everybody can use language. Everyone. Very good, very good. Very good. I enjoy this comment. It shows your understanding. Please, when we are doing this thing, Egbe, why did you delete that? That's your idea is correct. You shouldn't have deleted it. Someone is going through them. He can learn. And okay, fine, they are different. Write how they differ. That's what I want to see. Language is a system of communication, communicating ideas from one person to another. Why speech is the activity using language. Okay, okay. Okay. Now, we are trying to tackle the second one. Three references of language. Three references of language. The English word language may refer to three things. What are those three things? General accepted means of communication, one. That is Amadi Solomon. As dialects, okay, people specific, a tribe's or a nation's or a race way of communication. And then as speech, a person's particular way of communicating. Okay, very good. In language is solexism. Yes. Why mistake in speech is absurdity. Yes. What this thing means is that a mistake in speech can be more grave. It's more grievous, or it's graver, because it can lead to miscommunication or misinformation, and or to total breakdown in communication. But a mistake in language is not as grave, because the listener or the audience can even make up for the mistake or even correct the speaker, because he is participating in and with the stock of words you are using to speak the language. Okay, very good, very good. So what about the functions of according to your previous session, you said that language is a system of communication, whereas the act of using language. Yes, that's correct. What about the functions? Yes, and okay, fine. A mistake in speech is more implicating, is graver. Yes. Go back to the functions of language. Go to the functions of language. Please, this thing we are doing, you don't need, if you have the text, you don't need to be looking at the text. So that even those that were not in the last class can follow. What did you say about the functions of language? Begin from the two broad categories I mentioned. Begin from the two broad categories I mentioned on the functions of language. Begin from the two broad categories. Who remember what are the two broad categories before we began to talk about the other subtypes? In terms of the functions, I said there are two large categories of functions. Yes, Francis concerned about in this course about language as dialect and speech. Yes, that's correct. So who remembers? If you're online type, who remembers? We are talking about the functions of, okay, very good. Amadi Solomon, you were very much present in the last class. Amadi Solomon. Yes, communicative, stroke, expressive, and interpretative function. Okay. Universal language. Okay, very good. Expressive or communicative function and interpretative function. Good. These are the two broad categories we listed in the last session. Good. So there are too many functions of language. You can even divide them into 100 functions. But in the previous class, like we said that what? All these sub-functions may be divided into two large headings. Expressive or communicative function on the one side and interpretative function on the other. So we say that every other function of language, every other use of language falls under any of these two headings. Ezugu Emmanuel, you are welcome. That's what we said. That's what we said in the last class. Ezugu, you are welcome. So now, yes, Ezenwa Vincent, that's correct. Now, look at what I want you to do. Can you, Anuko Gerard, welcome. Can you pick? There are many functions we mentioned. How many do you remember? How many of the functions do you remember? Yes, this is one you are correct. How many of those uses of language do you remember? We mentioned more than 10 or up to 10. How many do you remember? No, we have talked about the two major functions. What about the other sub-functions? How many do you remember? How many can you point out? How many can you point out? Provocative function. Look, if you don't remember any of those functions, you must remember them, but this provocative function is very, very important. Ezekiel Christian just mentioned it. That provocative function is very, very important. Who postulated the provocative function? Who postulated it? Ezekiel Christian, who postulated provocative function? Sorry, I'm not even provocative function. I was talking about provocative function is important, but that's not the one I'm referring to. What is the function that was postulated by J.L. Austin? Social function, yes. Pio, list the ones you can point out. List them. List them here. Evocative, emotive function or evoking function. That is, Amadi, call that thing provocative function. Is better. Who remembers what is the name of the function that J.L. Austin attached to language? Directive, remembering, identification. Okay, Francis, that's correct. Social, creative, performance, aesthetic, storage, provocative function. Very good, very good. According to Wisdom Dede, locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary. Listen, persuasive function is correct, Amadi Solomon. Listen, this thing that Dede listed, locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary function of language, under which type of function do they fall? What is the general name of those three types of functions of language? And who postulated them? Very good. Francis, performative. Performative function. Performative function. Performative function has three sub-functions, three sub-types. What are they? What are they under performative function? And who was the person, who was this philosopher that developed or attributed performative function to language? I want to hear the name of that philosopher. What's his name? Yes, performative. Performative. By who? Is it by Guy Bertrand or by J.L. Austin? It's not H. Austin, please, Francis. It's J.L. Austin. I think the J is John. Yes, J. Austin. Yes, J. Austin. Very good. Informative. All right. It's not G.L. Felix Ebe. Felix Ebe is not G.L. It's J.L. J.L. Austin. Very good. Very good. Very good. J.L. Austin. Very good. Very good. Now, see. So how do you differentiate between the three? How do you differentiate between the three? Locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary. Use a concrete example and give me, because what J.L. Austin is saying is that what? Anytime you use language, these three functions apply. Yes, John Langshaw Austin. Very good, Ezekiel Christian. Very good, John Langshaw Austin. Very good. Now, J.L. Austin, John Langshaw Austin says that what? Each time you use language, these three functions apply: locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary. How do they apply? How? Give me an example. Write it here. Write it here. Who can break down how J.L. Austin explains locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary as performance function of language? Who can break it down here? Who can break it? Yes. Francis, locutionary is the language. That explanation is not good enough. All of them are language. What aspect of the language is locutionary? Yes. Locutionary, okay, Wisdom Dede says, is the statement. Is the statement, yes. Illocutionary is the action. Okay. While elocutionary is the outcome or consequence. Okay. Okay, Amadi said, I call you. You answer and move towards me. I call you. The call is what? Which one is the call? Which one is the answer? And which one is the moving forward? Amadi Solomon. Felix Ebe, very good. I'm happy that Felix, you are following what we are doing here. I'm very, very happy. Now you're understanding it. Locutionary is about what we say. Locutionary is the action, the language prompts. And perlocutionary is the consequence of the action. Very, very good. Igbe, that is correct. That is very correct. And Moti, John Austin, okay. Yes, it is the statement. Yes, Ezekiel is correct. Please, you see these responses we are doing online. Participate. Participate, because it is one of the easiest way you can learn, because you are practicing what you heard. You are, and once you do it well, it sinks. It sticks to your head, to your memory. Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. Very good. So I am so happy that at least from what I've seen, the majority of you, apart from those that are never present, you understood J.L. Austin's description of the function of language. Come is the locutionary. Now coming is the illocutionary. Perlocutionary is the consequence. Okay, very good. Okay. Now, how do you describe the storage function of history? The storage function of language. How does language perform the storage function? How does language perform the storage function? How? How? Who remembers? Storage function. How does language perform the storage function? Who can describe it? Storage. Because these are some of the ones that you might find difficult to explain. How does language perform the storage function? How? How? How does language perform the storage function? Chemere, your example is correct. Chemere, your explanation is correct. Your explanation is correct. Storage function. How does language perform the storage function? How? Any idea? Francis is correct. How does language perform? We memorize in language and write down in language. Amadi Solomon, is that all? Is that all? It doesn't capture it perfectly. What you explained, Amadi Solomon, what you explained here is mostly remembering function. Is mostly remembering function, but there is a way you can explain this now. It will fall into storage function. Very good. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Chinemere explained. Chinemere explained. Is correct. He said language performs storage function because it is through it that history, norms, practices are preserved. That's the storage function of language. What you described, Amadi, is more of remembering function. Very good, Francis. That is correct. Documentation, Ezekiel Christian. That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. Okay, so before we enter today's class, let me still prompt your reasoning. Let me prompt it more. What about eventually how did we define language? How do we define it eventually? How do we define it? Even though, of course, we agreed, we noted that it would be difficult to find a specific definition, a generally accepted definition of language, but we ended up pointing out some ways that scholars have defined it. What did we say that language referred to generally? How do we define language? Yes? Very good, very good, very good. What about the definition of language? Who can attempt it? Define language and at the same time define philosophy of language. I can see you. Yes, thank you for following. How did we define language and philosophy of language? How? What did we say about the two definitions? How? What did we say? Can you try? Cinema. Okay. Oh, that is cinema. Cinema recap hub. Language is an all means of communication as an interpreter in order. Okay, is all the means of communication used as an interlocutor in order to communicate information to the other. Okay, that's correct. That's correct. Very good. Patrick Okeke, your definition is sound, very, very sound and systematic. So is the organized language is the organized system of words and signs people use to think, speak, and communicate meaning. Very good. What about philosophy of language? What about philosophy of language? If you are asked to define it, how would you define it? How would you define philosophy of language? Yes, Bartholomew, that is correct. We have moved beyond that. How would you define philosophy of language? How? Patrick Okeke, philosophy of language is the branch of philosophy that studies the nature, meaning, and use of language. Okay. Very good, very good. Patrick Okeke, that is correct. Philosophy of language is the branch of philosophy that studies the nature, meaning, and use of language. Okay, today we are going to focus on the chapter 2 of this work. Chapter 2. So we are going to talk about philosophy of language is a branch of philosophy that investigates the nature of language, relationship between language and the implication of language and the world in which it is used. Very good. Cinema, very good. And Moti, very good. It's a system of communication between a member of among, don't say between, say it's a system of communication among members of a community. As a study of a system of communication. And when you John Cross, now your definition is not deep enough. Okay? Look at what others define here and improve yours. So let's look at what we are supposed to look at today. The reasons why philosophers are concerned with language. The reasons why philosophers are concerned with language. That is what we are going to discuss too. And you see it in chapter 2 of this work. The reasons why philosophers are concerned with philosophy of language. The reasons why philosophers are concerned with philosophy of language. Now, as philosophers, we don't just study language for the sake of curiosity or for no reason. There are specific reasons why we study language, why we are interested in language. And among these reasons, 4 stand out. 5 rather stand out. 5 stand out. So there are 5 reasons. Like I said, there are abundance of reasons. There are many, but 5 stand out. Okay? So the first is metaphysical reason. We have the metaphysical reason for the study of language. We have logical reasons. Metaphysical reason, logical reason, scientific reason, epistemological reason, and the last reason is language as the tool of philosophy. There are 5 of them. Sometimes when I ask students this thing, they only mention 4, the first 4, and leave the last one. That last one is a reason. Is a reason. There is metaphysical reason why we study language. There is scientific reason. There is epistemological reason. There is logical reason. And the last one, there is the consign of language as the tool of philosophy. Is a reason. Is a reason. The last reason is language as the tool of philosophy. These 5 reasons are the reason, among many others, why philosophers study language. Now we'll pick them one after the other. We'll pick them one after the other. Now the first one is metaphysical reason. Now I'm going to be as plain as possible. I'm going to try to explain using the most ordinary of language, so that when you listen and go back and read the text, or even if you don't read the text, you grasp, the major points you need to about what has been said. Now, for the metaphysical reason why we study language, this is what it means. Now, philosophers are of the view that language is a representation of reality. Remember, metaphysics is the study of being. Is the study of being as being. If you break it down, because being is reality, being is existence, you can say that metaphysics is the study of existence. Existence is the study of reality. Through what? Abstractions. Okay? Abstractions and reality of the mind. Now, philosophers are saying that what? That, remember, if you remember very, very well, when you were doing being in the world under Heidegger, one of the qualities of man as a being, that's an as a being in the world, is care. Another one is language. Both Heidegger and even Ricoeur and even Gadamer mentioned language as one of the ways man manifests his being in the world. Now, philosophers are saying that what? For the metaphysical reason why we study language, that it is language that exposes, that communicates reality. It is through language that we come to know reality. Metaphysical reason why we study language. It is through language that we come to know reality. And they said that what? That in fact, that within the structure of language lies the basic understanding of being, of reality, of existence. Because they insist that what? That language has a similar structure. Language has a similar structure with reality. And that is why we use language to express reality, to express being, to communicate existence. So that as philosophers, we cannot know being. We cannot understand being. We cannot understand reality. We cannot communicate reality. We can't even live reality without a good knowledge of language. Because language has within its structure the capacity, the disposition to communicate being, to communicate reality. Because language, the structure of language and the structure of reality are one. That's what that point is saying. That's what that point is saying, the metaphysical reason. So, in other words, put very, very simply, the metaphysical reason for studying language is that what? Is that what? Philosophy, metaphysically, is the study of being. And you cannot study being without language. You use language to study being. And the reason why I use language to study being is because language has a structure that is similar to being. That is similar to the structure of being. And it's because of this structure of language that language is able to communicate being, to communicate reality. So for us to know being, reality, which is the basis, which is the subject and object of metaphysics, we have to study and understand language. I hope it's clear. No. Sufyan, no. Our understanding of language is not limited to reality. No, it's not. But it is one of the basic understanding of language. Because if you look at it very well, you discover that anytime you are speaking, you are communicating reality. You are communicating existence. You are expressing existence. If you say come, it's communication. You are speaking to existence. Whoever you are referring to by saying come is a reality. So we cannot say simply, it will be too simplistic to say that our use of language is limited to understanding of reality. It will be too simplistic to say that, or too reductive. However, considering the metaphysical reason we are talking about, yes, our understanding of language to a very large extent helps us to communicate, to express, and even to live reality. Now, under the metaphysical reason for the study of language, there are 4 philosophers whose ideas you have to be able to communicate. There are 4 philosophers whose ideas you should be able to communicate. The first one is Plato. The second one is Aristotle. The second one is Aristotle. The third one is Wittgenstein. And the last one is Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell. Ask your question. I'm seeing it. Ask your question. I will reply. It's Bertrand Russell. What I explained generally as the metaphysical reason for communicating language, I hope it is clear. Is there anybody that didn't understand that explanation before I begin to pick out the viewpoints of these 4 philosophers under the metaphysical reason why we study language? Is there anybody that does not understand what I explain about the metaphysical reason why we study language? Is there anybody? Is there anybody? Sufyan, you can ask your question. Is there anybody? I hope it is understood. Now, for Plato, Plato explains his own perspective about the metaphysical why we study language. He says that what? That number one, it is because of language. Sufyan, is language the only communicative way? Yes. Language is the only means of communication. Remember, language is not only about speaking, even thinking, even signs, symbols, gestures of language. So once you communicate, you are using language, whether through verbal means or non-verbal means. It is language. Our gestures, our use of symbols, signs or signals, then the verbal means they are all language. They are all language. Okay? They are all language. Now, Plato's viewpoint, remember, Plato talks about the metaphysical function of language is that he came from the perspective of identification and naming. From the perspective of a little recap. See, a little recap. Let me explain again. See, remember metaphysical reason for the study of language. Remember what metaphysics do. Metaphysics is the study of being as being, and being is existence. And being is existence. Being is reality. Right? Now, philosophers say that the structure of language is the same as the structure of reality. In fact, that language share a very similar structure to that or with that of being, of reality, of existence. And this is why we are able to express, communicate, talk about being, about reality, about existence using language. So now they are saying that what? It is metaphysically, there's therefore a reason why we must study language, because since this language has a similar structure with being, and it is this language that we use to communicate being. For us to know being, which is the object and subject of metaphysics, we have to be able to understand language properly. And that is why we study language. So what they are saying is that what? A good understanding of language makes conception, understanding, and realization of existence, of being, of reality easier. Since language is the mode of communicating reality, is the mode of expressing being, is the mode of expressing existence. So for you to know existence, for you to know being, for you to know reality very well, which is the subject of metaphysics, you have to learn and understand language properly. That's what they are saying. That's what the metaphysical reason for studying languages is. See, Ikechukwu Atama, what makes it metaphysical is that what? Remember, metaphysics concerns the study of being. Do you remember the simple definition you have in class? That metaphysics is the study of being as being. And being is reality, being is existence. So that is what makes it metaphysics. So it is language that helps us to understand this being, which is the subject and even the object of metaphysics. That's why it is a metaphysical reason for studying language. So what makes this metaphysical is that what? Philosophers, why studying metaphysics, why studying being, which is the object of metaphysics, it is language that they use to study this being. Do you understand me? It is language. And the reason why they use language is that what? They argue that what? The structure of language is very much similar to the structure of being. So that is why language is able to explain or to express being, reality. So for you to know this being, to be able to study and understand being very well, or reality, which is the object and subject of metaphysics, you have to be interested in language to know how language is used. You have to study language. I hope it's clear. Ikechukwu, I hope it's clear. Yes, language can communicate every aspect of reality. Gabriel, yes, language can communicate every aspect of reality. Language can communicate every aspect of reality. There is no aspect of reality that language cannot communicate. So we are asking how do you understand philosophy like ancient philosophers did? By your own. It's by contemplating now. It's by thinking. Philosophy is not learned on paper. It's by thinking. Anytime you read anything about philosophy, contemplate on it. Like this thing I'm talking about now, if you want to understand it very well, think about it. Contemplate on it. And you will see that it is very, very obvious. It's very, very obvious. Everything, this world is reality. Is being, is existence. You cannot talk about existence, about reality without using language. Anything you want to talk about, you want to contemplate, think about, you think about it, you talk about it using language. So being, reality is expressed, is communicated using language. And because being is the subject of metaphysics, and language is used to express that subject of metaphysics, being, reality. So it is a metaphysical reason sufficient enough to study language. That is what this reason is talking about. And language cannot communicate being if it has no structure that is similar to being. The reason why you can look at something and say beautiful. This is what they are saying. The reason why you can look at something and you say beautiful. It is because, listen very well. It is because that thing, that beautiful, has a structure within it as an expression of language that perfectly captures the reality that you are referring to as beautiful. So within the structure of language, language has a particular structure that is unique but yet peculiar to the particular reality you are using it to communicate. That's what they are saying. So you cannot know reality, you cannot know existence, you cannot know being, or even talk about it without language, because language is the structure, is the symbol, is the signal, is the only mode of expressing being. Okay? Omo, is it that some of you are still finding it difficult to understand this thing? Ikechukwu Atama, you're asking me what are those structures of being and language that are similar? Both of them are expressive, if you like. They are experiential. And some of them are not experiential, though. Some of them are experiential, they can be experimented. Okay? But the particular structures we are referring to structure and the rest of them. We are talking about the ability for the brain to perceive it, to retain it, to feel it, to sense it, to intuit it. These are the structures we are talking about. Language has that. Language has that. Being has that. Sofian, you can drop a message for me subsequently. Let's talk about it. Sofian, you are looking for lecture on philosophy of origin. I can help you with that. Probably you should drop a comment. If you follow me here, you can drop a comment at the end of this live under the section, so that I can see, we can have a discussion about your philosophy of origin from origin. I can help you with that. Please, I hope this explanation is clear, so that we can now pick Plato. I hope it's clear. I hope it's clear enough. Now, I said that there are 4 philosophers that made contributions regarding the metaphysical reason why we study language. Their explanations or their viewpoints are anchored on what I already explained, but of course they have slight differences in opinions. Now, Plato came from the viewpoint of identification of reality. For him, metaphysically, language is the instrument we use for identification. Now, he talks about that in nature there are things we give similar name. For instance, man, you remember what to talk about universal and particular. Now he says that still talking about the metaphysical reason why we study language. Plato says that what? That language has an identification function. Language helps us to identify reality and to group things as either universals or particulars. Remember, when we were doing metaphysics, if you did metaphysics already, the idea of universals and particulars were discussed under metaphysics. Why we look at things and classify them as universals and look at some others and classify them as particulars is because we have a good understanding of language. So what Plato is saying is that what? Identification of universals and particulars will not be possible without an understanding of knowledge. Now, Plato is saying that what? See, that if you look at an aspect of reality and say man, listen very well, and say man, when you mention man, you are referring to what? A group of persons that have a common identity. A common identity. So that when you look at me now and say man, you are referring to both me and other things in reality that identify with me, that look like me, that resemble me, that are like me. So man, in that sense, has both a particular reference and a universal reference. This is the metaphysical function of language. So that we can identify particulars and universals. is because of the metaphysical reason why we study language. It's a metaphysical reason rather why we study language, because it is language that gives us this ability to look at a group of things and identify them with one name. For instance, a group of men, we call them man. Then you look at a group of ladies, you call them woman. It is because of language that we're able to do that, and that is a metaphysical function, metaphysical reason why we study language. Then particularity, you look at tree is general, tree. Then you look at this particular tree. So metaphysically, it is through language that we are able to identify things, either with a general name or either with a particular name. That's Plato's contribution. Please, Plato's contribution here doesn't concern form or matter. Because I know that most times when you tell students to explain this, they will go and explain it off point. Thank you, Sufyan. You are welcome to my channel. You are welcome. We are talking philosophy here. You are welcome, Sufyan. Thank you for the encouragement. Please, this thing I explained about Plato, is it clear enough? Is it sharp? If you read it in the text, you might not be able to see much detail. That's why when I explain, I try to buttress and be more expressive. Okay? Plato's contribution on the metaphysical reason why we study language, it came from the viewpoint of identification, using the idea of particulars and universals. That it is through language we are able to give a similar identity to a group of things that have shared similarities. It is through language also that we are able to pick one of those things in the group and give it a particular identification. So, in essence, in metaphysics, the idea of particulars and universals wouldn't be possible without language. And that is why language has a metaphysical function. And that is why we study language metaphysically. That is Plato's contribution. Metaphysically, language helps us to identify particulars and universals. Universals in the sense that we can look at many things that share the same qualities and bracket them under one category and call them what? Universal. For instance, tree. There are many types of tree, but every tree is a tree. We'll look at something and we'll say tree. We'll look at the mango tree, we'll call it tree. We'll look at orange tree, we'll call it tree. We'll look at mahogany tree, we'll call it tree. We'll look at plantain tree, we call it tree. Yet, even in this group, we can still, if you now bring together trees and put them together in one group, we can still look at that same group and pick out one out and say, even though all these things is tree and this one is a tree, but this one is pawpaw tree, is different from this one. This is the metaphysical discourse. What gives us the ability to do this is language. I hope it's clear enough. It's clear enough, right? Sophian, you know I cannot leave this discourse and begin to talk about Socrates right now. But I promise you we are going to have sections on Socrates and pre-Socratic philosophy. I promise you we are going to have a section on that. But for now, I have to concentrate on this particular topic. Okay, but Sufyan, definitely I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at pre-Socratic topics and discuss them here on this channel. Okay, that's by the way. Now, Aristotle's contribution focuses on the use of language to both communicate and differentiate between subject and predicate. Remember, it was Aristotle that talks about substance and accident, right? Substance and accident. Now, in Aristotle's discourse on substance and accident, for Aristotle are the predicates. They are matter used to describe substance. Why substance are the subjects? Now, in Aristotelian terms, all the words we classify as predicates and as subjects, and that we use to talk about reality, we are only able to do that because of our understanding of language. Do you understand me? It is because of our understanding of language that we are able to look at a particular thing and classify it as substance or form, and look at another one and classify it as accident or matter. And it is true because of the use of language that we are able to relate substance to form and relate substance to subject. And it's also because of the use of language that we are able to relate accident to matter and relate it to predicate. Please, is this thing clear at all? See, in simple terms, Aristotle's contribution here is that what? He made this contribution about on the metaphysical use of language through his discussions on subjects and predicates. And subject for Aristotle means substance, it means form. Predicate for him means matter, it means accident. Now, when you say John is beautiful, sorry, John is handsome. Listen very well. Is handsome. I have to use this example. I want to use this example to explain Aristotle's contribution on the metaphysical of language. When you say John is handsome, in this expression now, this is English language, John is handsome. Which one is the subject? Which one is the predicate? Can you pick out the subject and the predicate? John is handsome. Which one is the subject? Which one is the predicate? Can you react, please? Can you react? John is handsome. Okay, because of time, John is the subject. John is the subject. The predicate there is handsome. Now, in Aristotelian logic and metaphysics or philosophy, Babloma, please, we are doing philosophy of language. We are doing philosophy of language here, okay? We are talking about the reasons why philosophers study language. The reasons why philosophers study language. Okay? And we are looking at the metaphysical reason why philosophers study language. Now, John is subject, handsome is predicate. Good. Now, for Aristotle, the subject is unchanging. Why the predicate changes? Why he says that predicate changes is that what? Now you have said John is handsome. You can still talk about the same John. John is fast. You see that the predicate keeps changing. John is fast. John is slow. John is tall. John is short. John is running. John is coming. John is going. So you see that it is the same John assuming many different predicates. So that John that is the subject, metaphysically, through the use of language, we still call him what? We still call him substance, because it is substance that is unchanging. And we still call him form that is unchanging. Then, it is language that gives us this ability, and that's one of the reasons metaphysically we study language. Then, the one that keeps changing, the predicate, beautiful, handsome, tall, short, black, fair, that keeps changing. Through language, we realize that what? It has the semblance and reality of what? Of accident, because it's accident that changes. And we can also metaphysically call it what? Matter, because it is matter that also changes. So this is how Aristotle contributed to the metaphysical reasons why we study language. I hope this thing is clear. I hope it's clear. You have to get Aristotle's idea and also get Plato's idea and be able to express them. So, in essence, What Aristotle is telling us is that what? Metaphysically, language is important because it is through language that we are able to describe aspects of reality as subjects and aspects of reality as predicate. And it is also through language that we are able to come to the realization that what? The aspects of reality we call subjects are also referred to technically as substance, because they are not, they don't change. They are the ones that we also refer to technically as form. And it is through language that we also come to the realization that what? The aspects of reality we refer to as predicates, because they are changing, and metaphysically also described as what? Matter. And also described as what? As what? Accident. That's it. That's it. If you listen well to this thing, you don't need this book again, because I have demystified it and broken it into pieces. Okay? So that is, remember, this Aristotle and Plato we have discussed here are under the metaphysical reason why we study language. Of course, they. Then the next philosopher we are going to look at is Bertrand Russell. This Bertrand Russell will still function, will still feature when we are talking about philosophy as the tool of language. It will still feature under artificial language. Hello. Hello. Hello, sorry. I went off briefly. I'm back. Sorry, it's not network. My hand mistakenly touched something on my tablet. I'm back. Yeah. Babloma. Yeah, one of the most distinctive. Okay. So now I was talking about. Okay. So now I was talking about. I want to. Okay. I wanted to talk about the. I wanted to talk about the Husserl's contribution. Okay. Husserl's contribution. Sorry, Russell's contribution, Bertrand Russell's contribution to the metaphysical reason why we study language. Okay, now, Bertrand Russell suggested that what? Language is very crucial to human understanding. And because philosophy talks about, is a model of all discipline, it concerns understanding of reality. He believes that language is very, very important in our discourses, in our thinking, in our activities as philosophers. Now, Bertrand Russell felt that language as we have it has many flaws, because for him, they are the creation of poor minds. So because of it has too many flaws and too many insufficiency, it is not technical enough to be able to use it as a philosophical tool for studying reality, for studying existence. So now this is his own contribution to language, as a metaphysical reason for studying language. Now, for him, language is important for the study of reality, but the language as we have it in our societies, in our world, they are weak, they are not technical, they have too many flaws, and the way they are and the way they are used, if philosophers use them that way, philosophers may not be able to come out with the true meaning of reality, the true meaning of the things in the world. You understand? That is what Bertrand Russell suggested. So in order to overcome these anomalies in language, he decided to create a more philosophical type of language which philosophers will be using in their study of reality, and then adopted what he called symbolic logic. He founded it as we have it today. Even though before him, the major expressions of symbolic Francis Bacon's the new method, Novum Organum, but they were not so properly expressed. So to overcome these inadequacies in language in the modern contemporary period, Bertrand Russell went and founded a new kind of language for philosophy, through which philosophers can study, examine and reality better. And he proposed and came out with what he called symbolic logic. The use of symbols to describe reality. For him, symbolic logic is the kind of language that we need as philosophers, should use as philosophers to study reality. Now, he did this alongside both of them together. They co-authored a work they called Principia Mathematica. Principia Mathematica. So his contribution, not Wittgenstein, sorry, Whitehead, okay, Whitehead, not Wittgenstein, Whitehead. So his contribution is similar to that of Whitehead. So just like his colleague also, Whitehead's contribution is to simplify language. Because remember, his work is very similar to that of Bertrand Russell. It's very similar because both of them, they worked together. They wrote a common book, which they called Principia Mathematica. They were trying to develop or create philosophical language out of normal. So Russell went and created symbolic logic, while Whitehead, I can't call his first name now, but you can look for it online. Whitehead went and still symbolic logic, but he talked about a more simpler form of expression that is distinct. That philosophers should use a distinct, precise, and definite way of communicating that is similar to the communication of the language of mathematics. That kind of language is the one that can be used to communicate or to understand reality. He gave example. For instance, the shirt is white. It is a mathematical language. It is distinct, it's precise, it's clear. You can see the influence of science, just like Descartes. Just like Descartes that was in search of what? Distinct and precise knowledge. That's what Whitehead is saying here. Still under the influence of what Russell said, that created symbolic logic as a language of metaphysics, of philosophers for studying reality. Here, Whitehead was talking about developing a language for philosophy that is clear, precise, and distinct. Language that is so clear. Those are the kind of language that we can use to study reality. Language that are, for instance, you say the boy is black, is distinct, the shirt is white, is clear, is precise. That's the kind of language that Whitehead, recommended as the kind for to study reality. So he called them, language that avoid ambiguity. In fact, he called them, Whitehead called them that state facts, that declare the state of affair. Language that has truth function. You did it in logic. T and F, truth and false function of language. If you like, call it propositional language. Language that asserts. Okay? So he called it simple facts. Language that states simple facts. So these are the kind of language we use, not language that are laden or filled with ambiguity. These are the four contributors to the discourse on the metaphysical reason why we study language. I have explained the general notion of the metaphysical reason why we study language, the major claim there, and I've explained the contribution of Aristotle, the contribution of Plato, the contribution of Bertrand Russell, and the contribution of what? Whitehead. Somebody to check online for me. Check the first name of Whitehead. It's A, Whitehead. I can't really call what that A means. But you can check online. You can check, excuse me. You can check online. Okay. So we are good, right? We are good with the metaphysical reason why we study language. So we'll move to the next. We'll move to the logical reason why we study language. This one is very, very easy. Yes, thank you. God bless you. Alfred Whitehead. Alfred Whitehead, please. Alfred Whitehead. The name just escaped my memory. Thank you, Francis. Alfred Whitehead. Alfred Whitehead. Please, you see this thing I've taken time to explain. That's why I tell students, when you have class, come online. Look at your number now. You are just 20 here. Tomorrow, you ask the student to discuss the metaphysical reason why we study language. He will be struggling. If you go to this text, you see that it's scant. The author did not do a good job here. He did not do a good job. He did not discuss it elaborately. So if you read it here, you'll be struggling for points. You see them in the exam, they are not able to write anything. They will just list them and write one line. And they cannot score. Now we are here explaining this thing and they are offline. They are offline. So what I'll tell you is, if you are here, make sure you have jotted, because that metaphysical is one of the most important aspects of what we are doing in philosophy of language. I hope you jotted. If it is not clear, I can repeat, but I think I did a good job there already. Yes, Alfred, not Whitehead. Thank you for the name. Alfred, not Whitehead. Okay, now let's move to the next reason, logical reason. I have to rush because I have to finish this chapter. The logical reason is just like the name logic. It's just like the name logic. Logical reason. We're not going to waste our time here because this one is simple. Even without studying, you should be able to discuss the logical reason. Okay? You should be able to discuss the logical reason why we study language. Okay? So, logic is the tool of philosophy. In fact, philosophy in general, yes, Alfred, not Whitehead, thank you. Philosophy in general is logic. Everything you do in philosophy is logic. Even define philosophy as the use of logic to express reality. That's what philosophy is. Critical thinking is the use of, is the expression of reality using logic. So, and the logic you are talking about, logic is not just abstract, it's not just on the air. Whether you are doing logic in the mind or through verbal reasoning, you are doing it using language. Why logic is the tool of philosophy? Language is the tool of logic. And that underlines the logical reason why we study language. Is the tool of philosophy. Language is the tool of logic. Jagom, you are welcome. Hey, I greet you. Language is, so I've said something very important. Logic is the tool of philosophy, while language, Onuko Gerard, you are welcome. Language is the tool of logic. Think about all those things you do in logic, and syllogism, premise, proposition, conclusion. These things are logical expressions, but you cannot know what a conclusion is or what a premise is or what a proposition is. You cannot know which proposition is true or false. You cannot know the function, the truth or false, the T or F of a proposition, the truth or false function of a proposition, without understanding of language. All those things are expressed using language. You get? So you cannot even make a syllogistic argument, whether modus ponens or modus tollente. You cannot do any one without the use of language. So the logics of philosophy, all the logics of philosophy, whether statement or propositions, identification of subjects and predicates, whether simple syllogistic arguments, all of them are done using language. So there is actually no logic without language, because language is the tool of logic, just like logic is the tool of philosophy. So what it means is that remove language, there is no logic, and remove logic, there is no philosophy. So at the basis of the logic of philosophy, there is language. That's what we are saying. That's what we are saying. So that's it. So all the arguments, philosophical arguments and all whatnot, we make using logic. We cannot do them without the instrument of language, because every logic is expressed through language. Okay? Whether even all the symbols we use in logic, they are all language. Remember, when you were doing logic, you have what they call the logical connectives. You talk about conjunction, you talk about disjunct, you talk about which other one? Conditional, you talk about biconditional, and you talk about negation. All these things are symbols, but they are language. Without language, they cannot be communicated. They cannot. And you, as a student or as a professor that lectures them, you cannot teach them or understand them, respectively. So that is the function, the logical reason why we study language. The logical reason is that what? It is through language that we are able to communicate logic. Do you understand me? So that is the logical reason. So logic is about arguments. It's about putting propositions together, whereby two are used as premises and one is used as conclusion. So you can't, if you don't have a good understanding of language, you cannot put propositions together for them to make a syllogistic meaning, whereby two can function as premises and one as conclusion. You cannot do that without language. It is only language that makes you to understand that if I have a set of three propositions, UNN is a university. John is a university student. John studies medicine. These are three separate propositions. It is only language that will help you to understand how to put them together, whereby you use two as premise and one as conclusion in order to form an argument. Without the use of language, you cannot do this simple logic. That's the logical reason why we study language. The logical reason is that what? Language is the tool of logic, just like logic is the tool of philosophy. So remove language at the foundation level, logic is lost and philosophy is lost. Okay. Then epistemological reason. Epistemological reason why we study language. Now listen, this epistemological reason. You remember in epistemology we talk about knowledge. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. And when you talk about the theory of knowledge, basically, there are two types of knowledge. What are those two types? Generally, there are two types of knowledge. There is knowledge that is based on experience, and there is knowledge that is not based on experience. The knowledge that is based on experience, and the knowledge that is not based on experience, we call it a priori knowledge. A priori knowledge, or sometimes intuitive knowledge. Then the ones that is based on experience, we call it sense knowledge, or experimental knowledge, or experiential knowledge. But here, when we talk about the epistemological reason why we study language, we are more concerned a priori knowledge, the form of knowledge that is a priori. Because it is in this form of knowledge, yes, thank you, a priori knowledge and a posteriori knowledge. A posteriori knowledge is the one that is based on experience. It is this a priori knowledge that most elegantly communicates the importance of language to epistemology. Because A priori knowledge is not communicative, is not expressive, it's abstract. Now, philosophers of language are a kind of enthralled by language due to its capacity to communicate meaning even without experience. And that underlines the a priori function of language in the realm of epistemology. Now, a posteriori knowledge is important, and language can communicate it. But the one that thrills us as philosophers of language is the ability of language to communicate a priori knowledge. For instance, you can say the sky is blue. The sky is blue is a posteriori, is experiential. Somebody can look and see it blue and understand it. But epistemologically, we say language is even more important, because when you are communicating knowledge that is not a posteriori, that is not based on experience, this kind of language helps the listener, the co-interlocutor, to understand it even without experience. For instance, you say bachelor. Bachelor is a priori, it doesn't need experience. Bachelor is a priori, is abstract, is not experimental knowledge. So once you say bachelor and the sky is blue, philosophers of language are interested in this kind of language because it will take a proper understanding of language for somebody that has no sense of perception to be able to know what bachelor is. It will take him a lot of understanding in language to know what somebody just mentioned, necessary truth. That is a priori knowledge. So when you say bachelor is a priori, the person doesn't need experience. Immediately you say bachelor, you say, oh, he's talking about, maybe, okay, I'm in a conversation with somebody and I say John is a bachelor. When I say John is a bachelor, the person I'm talking to doesn't need to know who John is. He doesn't need to know where John lives. He doesn't need to have seen John. But once I tell him that John is a bachelor, he already knows that John is unmarried. The philosophical question for us as philosophers of science is that what? The structure of this kind of knowledge, a priori knowledge, that makes it possible for it to communicate meaning to the listener when it is used, without the listener having experience of that word. And it is in this kind of question that the epistemological reason why we study language becomes very, very ominous, becomes very, very, very crucial and important. So what we are saying here is that what? The epistemological reason why we study language is that language makes it possible for us to communicate a priori knowledge. It makes it possible for us to communicate a priori knowledge. Okay? Without you can argue that without language, somebody might be able to communicate sense knowledge. Listen to me very well. So I want to make you to understand why, when we are explaining the epistemological reason why we study language here, we are emphasizing a priori knowledge. You can communicate a posteriori knowledge, experiential knowledge, without language. You can tell the person, look, he will see it, he will understand. You can give the person to eat it, he will taste it and feel and know that it is sweet or bitter. That is sense knowledge. But a priori knowledge that is not based on sense perception or experience, there is no how you can communicate it without using language. You must say it somehow for the person to be able to know what you are talking about, because it's not experiential. It is not sense perceptual. It is not sense perceptual. It is something that somehow must be heard to be known. That's the point. So a priori knowledge is the emphasis upon which our explanations on the epistemological reason why we study language is hinged. Without language, it will be difficult for a prior knowledge to exist. It will be even difficult to communicate it. No. You know, I am here. That's why I say, if you are telling someone, look, you don't need to say look. You can do like this. Do you get my point? I said look because I'm trying to make you understand what I'm saying. You do the person, you point, see. Do you get my point? When you do like this, he looks, he's seeing it. But listen, if you do somebody like this, even if you say it look, you are showing him a man. Maybe you are doing him this way. You are trying to tell him that the man is a bachelor, but he will not understand it, because if you are doing like this, he's looking, he's seeing a man. He will be doing like he'll be asking you, what do you mean? But when you say he's a bachelor captures everything immediately. It tells everything about what you wanted him to know about the man. The man is still single. He's not married. He lives alone. He stays alone, and so on. So philosophically and epistemologically, the importance of language to epistemology is that it makes communication of a priori knowledge very, very important. Yes, gesticulation is language. Yes, but get the point you are trying to make. Gesticulation is language, but a priori knowledge goes beyond gesticulation. Oh yeah, even those that do sign language, how many of them? So the point you are trying to make here is that you can argue against it, but the point you are trying to make here, Emmanuel Chemere, get my point. The point you are trying to make here is that what? The importance of language to epistemology is underlined on the fact that it makes the communication and transmission of a prior knowledge very, very easy. That's just the point we are trying to make there. You understand? So I need you to get the direction, okay? And I need you to get the direction I'm going, so that when you're... Okay. Okay, then scientific reason. Scientific reason why we study language. Philosophical reason why we study language. This reason, you can try to understand it from the viewpoint of Cartesian logic. Remember, earlier on, Descartes went in search of clear and precise knowledge. Now listen, this scientific reason laps somehow with what I explained already concerning what's his name? Concerning the idea of Alfred North Whitehead and Bertrand Russell. Okay, and like I mentioned Descartes already. If you remember what we did already, you discovered that at some point philosophers were trying to develop a very systematic way of doing philosophy, a method of doing philosophy that is precise, that is distinct. That informed the philosophy of Francis Bacon. Remember the Novum Organum, where he developed a new method for doing philosophy that is free from ambiguity. Remember, before that time, before the Renaissance, the early modern period, and then even the modern period, philosophical language was filled with ambiguity. There were a lot of expressions. Okay, sorry, I'm back. So mathematics came in, arithmetic came in. So philosophers became very, 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 very impressed at the precise knowledge that mathematics brought, the mathematical method brought. So from then, there was this attempt by many philosophers to straighten and even sharpen the philosophical knowledge to suit that of science. And then they began to talk about the ability to express philosophical knowledge with precision and directedness. So the scientific reason for studying language falls within this discourse. It talks about the knowledge of language gives us the ability to do what? To be precise when we speak. It gives us the ability to be precise, to be direct, to be simple, to speak without ambiguity. And that, because that is what science does. That's what science does. It gives us the ability to avoid unnecessary use of bogus words. It gives us the ability to avoid unnecessary use of bogus words. And even when we use the bogus words, it gives us the ability to simplify those words so that when we speak, someone can understand us. That is one aspect of the explanation. Another one is that what? Because philosophy is interested in all aspects of every discipline. What happens? This kind of knowledge makes philosophy to compete with other disciplines. It makes philosophy to be able to compete with other kinds, because at some point philosophers were a kind of being pressured by developments in other disciplines like mathematics, like by physics, chemistry, biology, arithmetic, and the rest of them. So people began to demean or denigrate philosophical knowledge. So it was through the understanding of language that philosophers like Francis Bacon was able to write the Novum Organum, the new method, and was able to purify philosophical method and make the language used in philosophy to be distinct, to be clear, to be precise. No, when you speak with distinction, with clarity, and you are easily understood, we say that what? You are practicing scientific reason. So the scientific reason for the study of language is to help us to speak without ambiguity, and to make philosophical knowledge to have a kind of similitude or similarity with what? With what we have in mathematics. So that's why I say this kind of knowledge is a bit similar. In fact, at some point in the history of philosophy, there were people that were even developing it as a school of thought. I mentioned Whitehead already. I mentioned Bertrand Russell, who stood by and they began to develop a method. They began to develop a language technique which philosophers should use in writing philosophy, which they call symbolic logic. And that is Bertrand Russell, and which Alfred Whitehead called languages that state matters of fact, or that declare state of affairs. So you can see that the scientific reason for studying language is very much similar. It's very much similar to the metaphysical reason, specifically concerning the opinion of who? The opinion of Whitehead and Bertrand Russell. Please, we don't have philosophical reason. Are you talking about metaphysical reason? It's similar to metaphysical reason, but just the opinion of two persons. Whitehead, Alfred Whitehead, and who? And Bertrand Russell. Emmanuel, do you get me? That's where the similarity ends. But they are saying the same thing. Being able to speak without ambiguity. Being able to speak without ambiguity. Being able to speak with clarity, with distinction. Okay? So they are similar. They are very, very similar. They are very, very similar. They are very, very similar, because the argument there is that what? Language is vulgar. Language is a creation of dirty mind. So philosophy cannot use all this vulgar language in communicating. It has to be purified. And that purification is introducing the scientific approach to philosophy. And that purification led them to creating two major paths, two major a technique for doing language because symbolic logic, created by Whitehead and the other guy. Okay, so they are similar. Now, I'm just trying to rush because I've noticed that most of you are tired. You're already living online. Now, the last reason, language as a tool of philosophy. Yes. It also results from misuse of language. But you know, philosophers and their problem. Don't worry. When we talk about this ambiguity in the use of language, you understand it. Sorry, when we talk about artificial language, you understand it better. Now, consideration of language as a tool of philosophy. From all these things we have said, since I've been mentioning philosophical language and the rest of them, you see that for philosophers, there has always been this consideration that language is a tool of philosophy. All of them agree. All of them agree. They agree that language is important for philosophy. But the problem is, what kind of language should be used in philosophy? Is it artificial language or ordinary language? Just like Whitehead and Alfred Whitehead and Bertrand Russell suggested, should philosophy have a peculiar and unique technical kind of language it should be using to communicating reality, or should philosophy use the normal street language in communicating philosophy? This is a debate among philosophers, even though all of them agree that philosophy is a tool, language is a tool of philosophy. Now, this debate led to two divisions. There is the ordinary language philosopher. There is the ordinary language philosophers and the artificial language philosophers. The artificial language philosophers are people like the Vienna cycle, the logical positivists, the verificationists, the people like Bertrand Russell, people like Quine with his picture theory, early Quine with his picture theory, and even the later Quine. Okay, the early Quine falls under artificial language theory, while the later Quine, that is the early Quine when he wrote the Tractatus, the early part of the Tractatus, falls under the artificial language theory, while the later Quine is the most confused of all of them. The later Quine falls under ordinary language theory. So these artificial language theories, they believe that no, that philosophy cannot use ordinary language, ordinary street language, that is vulgar, that is demeaning, that is debased, is base. Philosophy cannot use it as a tool to study reality, the ultimate cause. It will be misleading because it's filled with ambiguity. That philosophy has to create its own language. And that was what they started creating. They created language like logical language that states matters of facts, according to Whitehead. Then somebody like Francis Bacon created scientific language in philosophy that talked about distinct and precise language. And then Russell created what? In his Mathematica Principia, he created symbolic logic. These are technical languages. They are artificial. For them, these are the kinds of language that philosophers should use. These are the kind of language that can only be the tool of philosophy. But the problem is that they have a serious advantage, because if you use this kind of language, it means that it is only philosophers themselves that can understand what you are saying. For instance, if somebody that is not a philosopher reads the works of Heidegger with all his philosophical jargons, you will not understand anything. But philosophy is supposed to proffer solutions to the problems in the world. So if you develop a technical and artificial kind of language that only philosophers will use, it means that philosophy will be made for philosophers alone, so that philosophy cannot be beneficial to the ordinary man in the society. They will not understand those philosophical jargons. And what it means is that what? The aim of philosophy might be defeated. And this is the criticism that was shot against artificial language philosophers. And then, others like John Locke, they say no. Most of them that are here are empiricists. They say no. We have to insist on using street language, ordinary language in doing philosophy. Because this philosophy is not meant for philosophers. It is meant to impact on the life of the people in the world. So we have to use their own language. Yes, G.E. Moore is part of them. We have to use their own language in writing philosophy, so that when we write as ordinary people in the world, they can understand it. So the criticism against ordinary language philosophy is that what? That if you use ordinary language, philosophy might be reduced to the affair of market discussions. A lot of vulgar expressions might get involved in it. But at the same time, you see that somehow both sides have advantage and both sides have disadvantage. So if you read these two sides, artificial language philosophers and ordinary language philosophers, you should be able to take a stand which kind of language is best for philosophy. Is it ordinary language or artificial language? And what are your reasons and arguments against and for? Now, if you are discussing ordinary language philosophers and artificial language philosophers, you have to be able to mention, if you are mentioning Wittgenstein as part of any group, you must be able to say whether it is early Wittgenstein or late Wittgenstein. If you mention Wittgenstein as Wittgenstein, you are not making any point, because Wittgenstein has two different opinions. In his major work, the Tractatus, he was very, very extreme. He spoke about artificial language, technical language, picture theory of language. There, he is in support of artificial language theory. But in later Wittgenstein, he in kind of criticized himself and went against some of the things he said, and then wrote in support of ordinary language, where he was talking about language as depicting what is in the world. In fact, at a point in one of the universities, somewhere, a group of scholars came together to form what they call ordinary language philosophers, because they were so worried about the language in contemporary philosophy, because it was becoming too abstract and extraordinary. So their goal was to bring back philosophy to ordinary language. Gentlemen, I don't know whether this thing makes sense. Egbe Felix, ordinary language is the use of normal language which market people use. Street language, if you like, in writing philosophy. The language of the common man. Are you getting it? White artificial language is the use of specialized language forms, like maybe symbolic logic, propositional logic, right? That only philosophers may understand, is technical. So all philosophers agree that language is philosophy, but they are divided on the specific type of language that should be used. Some say philosophy should use ordinary language. For instance, John Locke and some others. You see it in the text. Some say no, language that philosophy should use only artificial language. They should create language that is proper to philosophy, that is free from the vulgarity and dirtiness of ordinary language, the kind of language used in the street. That kind of language is the only language that is technical enough for philosophers to use and speculate on reality. Those who like Elie Wittgenstein, Alfred Whitehead, and Bertrand Russell, there are many of them there. Okay? So you should be able to understand these two schools of thought and take a position. Remember, this ordinary language philosophy and artificial language philosophy, they are discussed under philosophy, under language as the tool of philosophy, which is the fifth reason for the study of language. You see, Emmanuel Chiemere, this thing you just said now is not clear. Some scholars or some commentators suggest that later Wittgenstein was written by his disciples. Some even suggest that Wittgenstein wrote it, but the works, which is the later Tractatus and one other work, they were published after his death, but he was writing. But all we know as philosophers is that we classify all of them as Wittgenstein, early Wittgenstein and later Wittgenstein. For me, I believe it was actually they were written by himself, because even if you read that Tractatus, you will see the guy, sometimes he will say something and then go against it. But there is early Wittgenstein and there's later Wittgenstein. Both of them are written as Wittgenstein, but It's like the later Wittgenstein is against the early Wittgenstein. Whether it is himself that wrote or whether it's his disciples, it's not our business. They are all Wittgenstein. So that one is left for history. All right, is there any question? If there's no question, we have to end here. This is chapter 2. We have done chapter 1 and chapter 2. We can just call it a day here. Is there any confusion? Is there anything that we have discussed today that is not clear? Please, prefect, remember, go to the dean's office. Please, today, go to the dean's office, get copies of this book, and distribute. It's 1,005 to those that need. Please remember what I told you. You have a written test for this. You have a written test for this, and a paper presentation. That's what Ibadan told us, that we must do at least 2 assessments, 2, and send evidence. So please, read well, because I have noticed it. Some people that will get first class, now assessment, 9 they kill them. Because it's not like before, you will just be awarding mark anyhow. These guys are disturbing at the dean's office. Not their fault, but Ibadan. So study so that when you see the simple question for your assessment, you'll be able to tackle it. Okay? It's very, very important. These things we discuss here online, they are always here. They are always here. So anytime you are free, you can come back online and take a listen again to the discussions we had here. It's a way of refreshing your memory. All right, on Tuesday, I will see you guys again. By Tuesday, hopefully, I will be done with the recording of phenomenology. I'll call your scores for you guys. All right, thanks for your time. I will see you next week. Have a blessed day. See you.